very briefly introduce myself. So, as Petya said, I will join the CVC in less than a week. I just got a visa, and I needed a visa to the United States to be able to join the CVC in Barcelona. That's how it works, this TechnoSpring application. So yes, I will be joining CVC thanks to this program called TechnoSpring, which is funded by the European Commission, but which is managed locally by Techno. And it's a 2-year project, and 1 year is going to be in the US and Stanford. So I'm going to be leaving on the 10th of March. But then I will be back and will be spending more time here. And before joining CVC, I was at Universitat Pompeu Fabra. So I was in Barcelona for 5 years. I had the Juan de la Selva Fellowship there. Before then, I did my PhD in London, at Imperial College London. Before that, I was in Germany. I did an Erasmus in Germany, and I did my undergraduate from France, where I'm originally from. Okay. So the title of the talk is From Medical Image Analysis to Personalized Medicine. And what I'm going to try to do is explain what is personalized medicine. And then I will give you 2 examples. One from my past, this way you see what I did in the past, and one which is the future project. Huh? So before I explain what is personalized medicine, I will tell you that it's very important. It's a very important research area in Europe, but also in other places like in the United States. Huh? It's so important that Barack Obama, in his speech last year of the State of the Union, which is a speech normally where they talk more about politics, he talked about personalized medicine. And if Barack Obama says something is important, that means it's very important, because he's the President of the United States. And basically what he did is he initiated a dynamic with a lot of funding for people in the United States to work on this area of research. And some people use personalized medicine, some people use precision medicine, but I will explain the differences. Huh? Before I get to that, I will explain why do we need to do personalized medicine, or what is the situation at the moment. So there are 2 things. First of all, treatments are not effective, are not always effective. That's why some people who have cancer survive, others don't survive, unfortunately. Yeah? So, sorry. Yes, so treatments are not effective all the time, and we would like, ideally, that they become effective, maybe not all the time, but for a high percentage of patients. And the other problem is that some individuals are not even diagnosed. Huh? So sometimes, let's take the example of stroke. Sometimes suddenly somebody has a stroke. And it would be good if we could know before they have the stroke that they have the disease, that they have the problem which will lead to the stroke. This way we could do something about it. So these are the 2 problems. And these problems not only have consequences for health, but they have financial consequences. Because if you apply a treatment to someone and it's not effective, it doesn't work, well, it costs money to the society, basically. Yes, and also if you do not diagnose people in advance, that means you wait that they have a bigger problem, and then the treatment costs even more money. So that's why it's important that we have early diagnosis and basically personalized treatment that works. And the idea of personalized medicine is that this analogy is used a lot in the area of personalized medicine, is that we are all zebras, which means something I've learned is that all the zebras have different stripes, and it's the same for human beings. We're all different because we have different genes, but we have also different, something called phenotypes, which is we have different organs, we have different biological processes within us, etc. So because of that, because we're all different, we should not use the same treatment to everyone, which is the way it's done at the moment. So for most diseases, even for the diseases like cancer or cardiovascular diseases, you go to see a doctor or a surgeon, they will apply pretty much the same treatment. So the idea of personalized medicine is to say, for this person, I will apply a very specific treatment protocol. And for this other person, we'll apply a different protocol. Now, for a very long time, people used the concept, the term personalized. Very sorry about this. Let me just. Sorry for this. Huh? Okay, so I was saying that there is personalized medicine and then there is precision medicine. So I would say until 2010, 11, people used only personalized medicine. Now they use the term precision medicine, and they're different. Although some people use them interchangeably, they shouldn't. Personalized medicine is this, is what I described. So different people, different treatment. Precision medicine is the idea that you have to be precise, and to be precise, you have to use as much information as possible. So you have to combine information. In particular, you have to combine imaging with genes, with biochemistry, with lifestyle. And I'll show you, so the first project that I worked with, we didn't do that. We did integration, but we only integrated imaging information. But I think we should now do precision medicine rather than personalized medicine. Some people use the term in silico medicine, which means medicine with a computer. Because I don't think we can do personalized medicine or precision medicine without a computer. It's going to be very difficult. So they're all sort of linked. So the goal of the personalized medicine is to give the right treatment to the right person at the right time. So these three things. So how can medical image analysis help? Well, because medical analysis can help personalize, do some personalization. Because with images, you can model the exact organ of the people that you're dealing with through imaging segmentation, through image registration or image quantification. So you calculate image information that are specific to that patient. So I would say medical imaging is central to personalized medicine. It's very, very important. But it's not the only important thing. Huh? Genetics is important as well. But there are challenges. So I would say there are three challenges that would allow medical image analysis to get closer to personalized medicine. So there are a lot of people who work on medical image analysis, but they don't care so much about personalized medicine. If we want to connect both, we need to do a number of things. So first, we need to have an accurate personalization, or basically medical image analysis needs to be very accurate. Why? Because otherwise, if you say you make a mistake, you make an error while personalizing, say, the heart, then you're not really using the true heart of that person. The problem is that medical image analysis is not trivial. As I will show later, sometimes the images, they're not very good. There's a lot of variability, so it's not easy. You hear a lot of people saying, oh, for example, image segmentation has been solved now. Let's move to something else. But it's not true. As I will show you with some data, it's still, even after 20 years of people working in medical image analysis, it's still not resolved, and it's still very difficult. The other thing is you get a lot of information. Even just from the images, you get a lot of different information. So let's say the heart, you can get the geometry of the heart, the global, from images. Then you can get information about the tissue. So there's one type of modality called late-enhanced images that does that. And then you can get images about the fibers, which are the building blocks of the heart, actually, of the muscle. You can get information about flow. And I think people often work in a specialized manner. Some people are specialized in flow imaging, some in late-enhanced imaging. And I think somehow we need to bring everybody together, because to move from a specialized to a holistic approach where we take all the information together. And then we need also to combine these with genes, environment, lifestyle, biochemistry. So that's another challenge. How to do that? It's not easy, and I don't think it has been done, actually. And the other thing is, once you do medical image analysis, how do you take decision? How do you say, this person has this disease, so this person should have this treatment? That's the decision making, and it's not easy either. Okay, so let me give you the first example, which is the euHeart project, which was a 4-year project with massive funding, 19 million from the European Commission. And I think it progressed the state of the art in this topic. So as you can see from the title, already there's the idea of integration, huh? And the idea of personalization, is patient-specific. So there were a lot of partners, and partners had different expertise. They were specialized in different things, but then the idea was to bring everybody together and integrate all this knowledge, all these skills, and to do one thing. So the idea was to build personalized cardiac models, so the model of the heart of a person that is patient-specific, by integrating different types of information, and then do simulation to do treatment planning, which I will explain now. So the idea was to integrate different types of information, first to extract them, so that's the personalization, there's always 3 steps, then to integrate them all together, so find models that can do that, and then to apply them to some decision process, like, for example, from treatment planning. So the step 1 is personalization. So this is where we need medical image analysis. And as I said, there are still a lot of problems. Huh? For example, when we were working on this project, we realized that a lot of medical image analysis techniques, image segmentation, for a long time, they were developed and validated with normal subjects. But in this project, you're dealing with pathological cases. The people have diseases, and their heart is a bit different. So if you use, for example, statistical-based method or model-based method, suddenly they don't work very well. So we developed a technique that can handle abnormality. Yeah? And you could be very surprised to see that there's not so much work on that. Most techniques are validated with normal cases. Another thing that needs to be personalized is the motion of the heart. Huh? So that was the shape and now the motion. So we did some work on that. Then we did also some work on the cardiac tissue, which is to look at whether the tissue is healthy or whether it has scar. So we did a technique, and I can say this, it's very difficult, and we have barely 70% accuracy. So this is, for example, one problem, because if you cannot personalize the scar accurately, it will affect the model. So this is, for example, one challenging problem for the future. We worked also on the fibers, which are these building blocks of the muscle. So the muscle is made of these layers, and it's very important to personalize them because it's through these layers or along these layers that the electrical activity of the heart develops and propagates. So if you don't get it accurately, that's also a problem. So we developed some techniques to do that. Then there's the Purkinje system, which is even more difficult, which requires specific modeling, which is this tree which is in the heart through which the electrical propagation starts. So it goes through it, and then it propagates to the entire heart. So you need to have it as well. So there was a lot of work on that. Then we did computational modeling, which is to integrate all this. Huh? And we use models that use easy rules. For example, the electrical activation is initiated at the Purkinje tree. So we have the Purkinje tree, so our model would start the electrical propagation there. So that's the image on the left. Then we know that the electrical activation follows some patterns parallel to the fibers, but also taking into account the global shape. So that's the image in the center. And then there's something another rule that we use is that it doesn't propagate inside the scar, because scar is the part of the tissue that is dead, basically. So using these simple rules, we built the model, and we were able to do electrical propagation of the heart, to simulate it. Now, the third step is the treatment planning. This is where we take decision. So we applied it to a very specific treatment model, which is called the cardiac resynchronization therapy, which is when the heart doesn't beat properly. It's not synchronized. The left part and the right heart are not beating at the same time. So the way it's resolved is that by putting 2 electrical shocks at the same time in the left and the heart, but you have to put it in the right place and then restart it again, resynchronize it again. So you put 2 leads through arteries into the heart, and then you give some impulses. But you need to put them in the right place. So at the moment, the way it's done, surgeons, they have experience, more or less. So they put it there, and they say, well, I think I will put it here, but it's not very accurate. And that's why 30 to 40% of the patients do not respond to it. So So the idea we had here was to do this through simulation. So instead of applying an average treatment, to personalize the treatment. So to build the model like I showed, then to have different lead placement. For each one, do a simulation in the computer, and then choose the one that improves the function of the heart. So where you see that now it's synchronized. So that's the idea. And if for all these different lead placement, it doesn't work, well, then it doesn't work. There's no point to actually perform surgery to the person because it costs money and it can also worsen the condition. Okay, I have a video to show, but it's 5 minutes, but I will fast forward it. So we built this platform, and we presented it at the end of the project. And it goes really step by step. So it does everything I described. It selects the patient. It selects all the different image data. So we did this with different partners, with Philips, with INRIA, with other partners in KCL in London. So we select all the data. I will fast forward a bit. Here we're looking at the shape. Here we're going to take tag or CT or tag, for example, is to calculate the motion. Here we do the motion actually estimation. Here it's the scar, that one I described, so whether the tissue is dead or healthy. This was done by Philips. We did one in UPF, but it didn't work. We didn't like it. It just didn't work. We failed because it's a difficult problem. Philips had a better algorithm. What else did we do? I'm looking for the fiber. There's a place where there's a fiber. Okay, I missed it somewhere, but this is where we put the leads now. So now the surgeon in the computer will put the leads, 1, 2. One on the left, one on the right. And then we will run the simulations, this is where you run the simulation of this electrical activation, and then the clinician should be able to say, well, it doesn't work, so let me try another one until it works. So that's the idea. We did it as a demo because we were a bit worried that it wouldn't work during the presentation in Brussels. Now, the problem with this, I would say, if I have to conclude here, is one, we only used imaging information, a bit of demographics. So it was 5 years ago, more or less, when we started this project. So we didn't take it a step. So we did really personalized medicine, for that matter. We didn't do precision medicine, because I think we need to take into account genes and other things. Another thing, if I had to sort of discuss this project, I would say something that is it's a bit of a shame, is that it stopped and that was it. And somehow, so there was really a lot of nice papers written. There was even the software, but that's it. So when is this going to be used in clinical practice in a hospital? I don't know. And I don't know how we could do it, how we could change the system in a way that we would push it further. Because we actually went and asked for more funding, and they said, well, we already gave you funding. We gave you 19 million, so why do you need more funding? But I think these things we need to continue somehow. It's like if you take the example of smart cars, they don't work today, but maybe in 10 years or 15 years they will work. Why? Because people are continuing. There are things that don't work. It's not perfect. And this we stopped. So that's my critique of the whole thing. It was 19 million. I don't think it's thrown, and I'm sure it will be used, but it could be done faster maybe, but it would require money. Anyway, so let me move to the other project. So this project, I would say, was multi-scale image analysis with simulation. That's how it was done. This will be more data analysis, so no simulation. It will be based on looking at databases and things like that. So it's going to be a bit different. Now, the objective is pretty simple. It's to identify patients that are at high risk of a cerebrovascular event, a stroke, which occurs when the plaque, which is in the carotid, ruptures. When it ruptures, then it builds a clot, and then the blood cannot circulate. Huh? So this is the image on the left. So at some point it cannot circulate, doesn't go to the heart, to the brain, sorry, and then this creates a problem. Now there is a treatment for it that it's in development stage. Well, some of it actually is already used in clinic, which is called stenting, which is to put into a tube to actually make the blood flow normal. So there is a treatment for it, but sometimes, and a lot of the time actually, the patients, the individuals at high risk of a stroke are not detected, are not identified. And sometimes you can be even surprised. There are people who look perfectly healthy. Some of them even practice sports, they don't smoke, and suddenly they have a stroke. Huh? And some of them even young. Huh? There are some very young individuals that have strokes. So it would be good if we could identify these people so we could do some treatment. Now, these are some statistics about the stroke and the image of the damage that it does. Huh? Now, how do we do it at the moment? So there are some works. And I would say the existing works are almost geography-based. So there are these sort of papers. I could have given you others. There are those that were written in the US, those that were written in England. So they take a population from a country, and they do it this way because people from one country, they tend to have the same habits. They eat the same food, they have the same weather, they have also similar genes, etc., etc. So this one was done for Spain. Many different cohorts. One of them is called REGICO, and they calculated a risk function. So what did they do? They took all this information here. So, for example, whether the person smokes, body mass index, diabetes, blood pressure, cholesterol, this sort of information. And then they calculated, they put all this, they took some people that did have a stroke, others that didn't have a stroke, and they did some statistical analysis, and they calculated the risk function. They used two models, a simplified one that used only a few information, and the more complex one, which is B, which used a lot of information. And from the simplified to the complex, the improvement is not massive. Huh? So it goes from 66% accuracy for men to 71%. So, but still, so there are 30%, even with this model, assuming it will be applied in practice, there will be 30% of people that have stroke that will not be identified. No? So we need to improve this. And our idea is to add imaging. So this work I showed, when they calculate the risk function, they don't use imaging at all. So the idea now is to take a database, which we have here locally, which is called the REGICO database, which has 7,000 cases, including imaging. So, so these are sort of imaging of the carotid artery. It's how they look. They don't look great, but that's all we have. I mean, that's ultrasound. That's what's used in clinical practice. Now, there have been some works that have tried to quantify stroke risk from images. There are 4 different measures. One is called the intima media thickness, which is the thickness of the wall. If it's very thick, that means there is a plaque. That's all it says. But if there is plaque, that doesn't mean it's going to rupture. There's the degree of stenosis. It's the same thing. The higher is the stenosis, that means the narrower is the lumens, the inside of the artery. But again, sometimes very high stenosis, but the plaque doesn't rupture. Then there's the plaque volume index, which is simply the volume of the plaque. And then there's the plaque composition. I think of the 4, the best one should be the plaque composition, which is to say what is inside the plaque. So this is an example. So this is a plaque, and you want to know what's inside, because inside of a plaque there's lipid, there's calcium, there's all sorts of things. And depending on how much lipid there is, how much of the different constituent, the plaque will be at a higher risk of rupture and therefore of stroke. But it's not easy. First, you would need to manually delineate the plaque. And in our case, we can't, because we have 7,000 cases and we need to do it automatically. And then you need somehow a more, this was a software that was written just to really count the pixels, how much lipid there is and how much of the other constituent there is. But probably we need something more advanced than this. Okay. So what we would try to do in this project is when we have a new patient to compare it to a large database of these other patients, which is these 7,000 cases I described, and find patients that are similar to see whether we can have some sort of stratified risk function. So if we can find these patients are similar. Oh, sorry. But what happened?
I guess the input history.
But how? Sorry? I don't know what happened. Oh, maybe this fell. Ah, okay, I got it. Okay. All right. So the idea is this, is we have a patient and we're going to compare it to a large database, find the similar patient, and then say, well, this patient, they're similar, they have same image properties, same plaque properties, for example, and then we'll have what we say, we'll derive the same diagnosis. If these guys had strokes, and this guy also is at high risk of stroke, so we'd need to do something. If they didn't have a stroke, then we just need to monitor them and do nothing at this stage. Huh? So that's the idea. But we need to do some image analysis to describe what is this similarity, no, in plaque. So let me show you what they did in Stanford in cancer imaging. So they used medical image retrieval, which is this idea of, instead of doing segmentation of the tumor, which is difficult, what they did is that they took a region of interest around the tumor. They have a large database of these patches, and then when they come with a new tumor and they want to do some diagnosis or even a treatment selection, they would compare it to all this region of interest of past examination in the database, and then they would say, well, it's similar to these, and then let's apply the same treatment. And to do that, they use some image features. They calculate some texture descriptors. So if you have those two tumors, for example, one is round and one is irregular, then the signature is not the same. So that's what they do. They did this, and then they do integration. They take, for example, in this paper, they took imaging and they combined it with genetics information. Here, what we do, but they don't have any expertise in carotid image analysis. But here we have more expertise in carotid image analysis. So I think the two institutions are complementary in this regard. So the idea will be to use the skills that we have here in image analysis and their skills in database and also in personalized medicine to build, and this will be my last slide, to build a system that will be able to accurately model the plaque and quantify the plaque. Second, to integrate with different information as much as we can. I put genetic information with a question mark because we're not sure we have it here, so we might not do that with the other things we do. I added cardiac function actually yesterday because as I was preparing this presentation, I read that 10% of people who have a stroke, the reason they have a stroke is not only because of the carotid, but it's also because they have something called atrial fibrillation. So the combination of something that seems disconnected, which is the cardiac function, and the carotid leads to a cerebrovascular event. So I have the impression that at some point, maybe not for this project, but in the future we'll have to increase the dimension of this integration. So we're starting with the carotid, we're starting with images, and we're adding information to it. And at some point we'll have to add more information, including on the cardiac function. Otherwise, we'll have a partial picture of the problem, and our risk function will never get to 90%, which would be really great, which will be, I think, our goal. So the ultimate goal will be to have this decision support system. This is what we promised. we even need to have probably a patent. That's what we promised to Tech New. And that's what we're going to try to do. I'll finish by just acknowledging the people who funded this project and also all the institutions that helped me write in it. In particular, I would like to thank Petya, without whom I wouldn't be here. And thank you all of you for your attention. It's actually a very good question. We never thought about it as an education. Maybe that's what we should do. The problem there is, in my opinion, is not even a technical problem. I think it's a cultural problem. So even for education or for treatment, actually, when you talk to the clinician, something that we notice is they're not impressed, actually. When you show them this sort of thing, 19 million euros, you show them and they're not very impressed because they don't like this sort of systems, actually. But they don't like systems where they don't control. If you build an amazing algorithm and you tell them, this algorithm is 100% accurate, and this algorithm is telling you that this guy has this disease, they don't like that. Because they want to be the ones controlling. They don't trust it. That's a problem. So this is the same. If you tell a surgeon who has 30 years experience doing this sort of surgeries, and you tell the surgeon, this is where you should put the leads, he's not going to be very happy, or she's not going to be happy. They will say, well, you know, I have 30 years experience. Why should I believe an algorithm? So there's a cultural problem here. Maybe they need, well, the clinicians need to be educated to trust more algorithm. And I think computer scientists and engineers need to think of method that will involve the clinician somehow in the process. But they don't like black boxes, that's for sure. So that's the problem. But I think it's a good idea to actually use it for education, definitely.
And about the second part, well, this is the sound observation, I think it's very interesting. So some of the people here are working at the other side of the lifestyle.
Yes.
I think these two words are very complementary. Until now, they belong independently. So that today we simplify. We have healthy persons and patients. The point is that there is no, the word is not binary. All of us here are questions and answers. Right?
Yes.
And today the big question is how to use lifestyle in order to help patients, and how to and vice versa, right? So today in fact yesterday and the day before I was in a meeting in Rotterdam, and they were speaking how to use, for example, food to cure people. So we shouldn't think about that. Usually the only way to cure people is by pharmacy. Yeah, it's the wrong thinking behind the approach. So there are these two words are very, very much more complicated and much more overlapping.
Definitely.
And lifestyle is really very important for patients and for healthy persons. And medical images are not only for the patients, they are also for the healthy persons.
Definitely.
So medical images are very important because they are an objective biomarkers to see our health, our state of health, right? But definitely always these two parts that are very, very common: lifestyle and body and health style.
Yeah, I think so. Actually, that you mentioned this, I saw a TED talk of a guy called Atul Bure, who is he's the director of an institute that was just created in San Francisco called the Institute of Computational Health Sciences, and he imagined healthcare in the future. It's actually a very nice talk. And one thing he imagined is to have a machine or something, a tool that would have with your watch or something, that would be able to tell you in the future, first to based on your genetics, based on your constitution, but also with a camera that would be able to look what you're doing at the right time, at this time, to be able to look at your food and tell you, well, maybe you shouldn't eat that, but eat something else. I don't know if I explained it very well, but he was explaining this sort of system. And I think live logging, which is the thing that now you're going to will play a very important role. It's challenging, but it will help basically prevent people to get sick. And this is true. So at the moment we're focusing on people who are sick. So you're sick, let's apply a treatment. So what this guy was describing is there will be a shift toward healthy people, and to make sure with this sort of technologies like live logging to monitor them during the day, monitor their lifestyle, their exercising, their food, etc. So I think both will have to be combined as well, definitely.
Perhaps a naive question, but why zebra? Why the zebra? Like,
That's
it's about specific treatment for people, but why?
We are all zebras. It's a sentence. I don't know who said it first, but it's a sentence that's used by people who work in personalized medicine. Because zebras, the stripes are. There are no two zebras that have the same stripe. Okay, so we are all zebras because there are no two people who are the same. In fact, even if you take twins, like identical twins, because they live different lives, maybe one smokes, the other doesn't, or one exercises a lot, the other exercises, the treatment should be different. That's the idea of we are all zebras. Yes.
I heard that you need massive amounts of data in order to personalize medicine. So do you know any effort in collecting that data?
Yes, definitely. So there have been always efforts to collect data. What's new, I think, is pretty much in the last 2 years, is that now there are these cohorts which will cover the entire body. So until recently, there were studies like the Alzheimer's study. There's one called ADNI, and they only focused on Alzheimer's. So you had only images of the brain. Now there are initiatives to image the entire body, and also to have genetics, biochemistry, to have all sorts of blood samples, lifestyle, everything. So for example, there's one called the UK Biobank. So it's very easy, UK Biobank. If you look at it in Google, it's a massive, massive initiative. It's about 80 million euros. So it's a massive amount of money. And they're going to acquire data of 500,000 people, 500,000 in the UK. So with that, there's going to be a lot of nice research that will be able to be done, including us, we can do it, we can use it. So the UK Biobank is open access. All you need to do is write an application, which I did actually, so I have access to 5,000 cases, for example, and tell them why do you want to use it. 90% of the cases it's accepted. They just verify that you're not doing anything silly with it. And that's it. So there's that one. There's one in Germany called the German National Cohort, 200,000 cases. In the United States, there's the Framingham one, which used to be only the heart. Now it's going to be pretty much the entire body. It's going to be hundreds of thousands of cases. There's one in China, one in Canada. And with this massive amount of data, we have really exciting research ahead of us that we can do. But we need image analysis techniques that can process that volume of images, and it's not obvious. So recently I did some tests. I took our tools for cardiac image analysis, and I tried to apply it for 5,000 cases, and I can tell you it's a different story. Even with 5,000 than when you have only 100. It's a different story. It's much more difficult to get robustness, etc. So there's a lot of work ahead of us, I would say. But then you can do deep learning.
Right now, you want to use the medical images to integrate them in a more complex medical system, right?
Yes.
We built the other way around, so to use this medical information to
better understand the images? Maybe you can classify better the images if you know the history of the patient.
Yes. Yes.
There is
So
some organization on
yes, that's a mechanistic method, and I know for a fact that even in the last 2 years there have been a lot of projects that specifically say we're going to use this sort of method. And I think both are complementary, because to get the knowledge and the models, you need at some point to do some image analysis without models. But then, yeah, so it's sort of iterative, and it's each of the method fits the other one. Yeah, and it will create more knowledge, and definitely. That's it.
Thank
All right.
you.
Well, thanks to all of you.